actions the administration announced today to improve reentry for those who have been incarcerated. And more importantly, to hear from several individuals who can speak personally and powerfully to the importance of supporting our fellow Americans as they reenter their communities. President Biden believes that America is a nation of second chances, that none of us are defined by our biggest mistakes, and that people deserve meaningful opportunities for redemption and rehabilitation in prison and support during reentry. Today, the president announced his first wave of clemency grants, which Dana will discuss, as well as a whole of government approach to expand second chance opportunities and improve reentry outcomes for Americans who have served their time. These announcements include an historic, first of its kind partnership between the Department of Justice and the Department of Labor that will invest $145 million in job training and intensive and individualized reentry support in federal prisons. In addition, a dozen federal agencies have announced more than 20 actions to expand employment and associated wraparound supports. The Department of Education is making more incarcerated students eligible for Pell Grants so they can obtain post-secondary education. The Department of Health and Human Services is making it easier for older Americans leaving prison to get health insurance through Medicare. The Department of Veterans Affairs is helping formerly incarcerated veterans get their benefits restored. The Small Business Administration is expanding access to capital so that criminal history records don't exclude entrepreneurs from opportunity. These are just a few of the policies our administration announced today. Supporting successful reentry is something that people on both sides of the aisle have long recognized reduces recidivism, enhances public safety, and offers our fellow Americans an opportunity to make meaningful contributions to their families, their communities, our economy, and our nation as a whole. The actions we're taking today will have a real impact for someone trying to land a job, find a safe and affordable place to live with their children, and get back on their feet. I'm really looking forward to this discussion. And before we get to that, I'll turn it over to White House Counsel Dana Remus to say a few words.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you to today's panelists and to all who are joining us virtually. My name is Dana Remus, and I am the White House Counsel. Today, as part of our recognition of Second Chance Month, President Biden is granting 75 sentence commutations and 3 pardons. This represents more grants of clemency at this point in a presidency than any of the last 5 administrations. These pardons and commutations reflect the president's belief that our nation must offer people who have been incarcerated meaningful opportunities for redemption and rehabilitation. They also reflect the president's broader commitment to reforming our justice system to address racial disparities and other inequities. There are simply too many people serving unduly long sentences for nonviolent drug crimes, a disproportionate number of whom are Black and brown. That is why the president is commuting the sentences of 75 individuals who were convicted of nonviolent drug offenses, including many individuals who have been serving successfully on home confinement. President Biden is also committed to using his clemency power to provide relief to individuals who are serving unduly long sentences that they could no longer receive because of changes in the law, including the First Step Act, which reduced mandatory minimum sentences for certain nonviolent drug offenses. Almost 1/3 of today's grant recipients would have received a lower sentence if they were charged with the same offense today. And critically importantly, the individuals who are receiving sentence commutations today have demonstrated their commitment to rehabilitation, including by seeking employment and by advancing their education. Many are parents who will now have the opportunity to reunite with their families and rebuild relationships. And many have faced incredible challenges in life, from childhood and domestic abuse to addiction, and have shown resilience in seeking to overcome these challenges and find a path forward. President Biden is also granting full pardons today to 3 individuals who have a demonstrated record of seeking to advance justice and to improve their communities, and who have made great use of their second chances. Before I turn it back to Susan and Cedric, I want to say a special thanks to my deputy, Danielle Conley, whose leadership has been critical in today's clemency grants, and to Chirag Baines, Susan's deputy, who has been critical in leading the policy initiatives. I'm very much looking forward to the conversation today and to hearing from our panelists who can attest to the power of a second chance. I'll now turn it to my colleague, Cedric Richmond, to share a few words.
Thank you, Dana, and thank you to everyone joining us today. The President believes that justice and safety are complementary values that go hand in hand. For all of our communities to thrive, we must ensure our criminal justice system lives up to our Constitution's promise of equality, equity, and justice. Leaders on both sides of the aisle recognize that smoothing the path to reentry for those who have served their time is not just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do, and it makes our communities safer. Giving a second chance to those formerly incarcerated reduces recidivism and offers them an opportunity to make meaningful contributions to their families, their communities, our economy, and our nation as a whole, instead of returning to crime. People returning home from prison often identify securing employment as the most important part of successful reentry. A good job helps someone who was incarcerated take care of themselves and their families, reduces the risk of homelessness, and offers a sense of dignity, purpose, and agency. We know that employment and successful reentry are powerful crime prevention and community violence intervention tools. That's why they are 2 key pillars of the President's comprehensive strategy to prevent and respond to gun crime and other violent crime. It's an honor to be here today with my colleagues, Susan and Dana. And enough of hearing from us. It's now time to hear from you. So I'll turn it over to Susan Rice.
Thank you, Cedric, and thank you, Dana, for being my partners in this work. And now I'd like to introduce our roundtable participants. Joining us here today are Ray Perez, a Veterans Peer Support Specialist from Surprise, Arizona; Kemba Smith-Pradilla, a clemency grantee and criminal justice reform advocate from Ashburn, Virginia; Jeffrey McReynolds, a business owner from Frankfort, Illinois; David Lynch, a dispatcher and truck driver from Hagerstown, Maryland; James Morgan Jr., a labor union apprentice from Compton, California; and Jessica Henry, a college student from Spring Arbor, Michigan. Thank you all for being here and for sharing your experiences with us. Each of your stories embody what a second chance can look like and why our criminal justice system must provide meaningful pathways for rehabilitation and reentry. So to kick us off, I'd like to turn it over to you, Ray, first, to please share your story.
Well, first and foremost, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to share a little bit about myself with all of you. It is a great honor to do so. My name is Ray Perez, and I'm a peer support specialist with the Phoenix VA healthcare system. I also served in the United States Army as an infantry soldier. After getting out of the military, I struggled a lot with readjustment issues, and I chose to self-medicate as a way to numb the pain of reality and to cope with life. With that being said, I've struggled a lot with homelessness, incarceration, and addiction. You know, I've been down very dark roads that I would not wish upon anyone. However, it had to be that way for me. You know, my rock bottom was really deep, and I had a lot. I lost a lot, pushed my family to the side. I lost my children for a while there, and ultimately, being incarcerated was better than being on the streets. And when I was locked up, I had met with the VA team. The Veteran Justice Program came in to see me and started talking to me about different benefits and services that were available through the VA. There was a team of social workers, POs, the court staff that helped me to buy into VA treatment upon release. And after my last violation, I bought into services. I started speaking with a mental health provider about everything that I'd been going through up until this point in my life, being a convicted felon with barriers. And I was introduced to the compensated work therapy program at the Phoenix VA, where it was designed for veterans like myself to help us get back into the workforce. And through that program, I became a certified peer support specialist. And soon after, I joined a team that once helped save me from the grave. I became a member of the Phoenix VA Healthcare for Reentry Veterans team and became the first peer support specialist to go to all the prisons and the jails across the state of Arizona, both federal and state, to share my testimony on what I have gone through up to this point in my life with my brothers and sisters that were locked up. A lot of these individuals that I meet with, I've done time with them. I've been on the streets with them, and I've been through programs with them as well. And sharing my testimony and my story of hope and the different services and resources that the VA has to offer is a huge component to the work that I do. Currently here at VA, we are working with the Veteran Reentry Search Services. It's a tool, a partnership with Social Security Administration and the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and a tool that is used to get information on veterans that are incarcerated, so that when I do go in to meet with them, I already identify who they are and try to help them the best I can prior to meeting with these individuals. Also at VA, we have a huge push right now to faster restoration of veteran benefits. And again, this is to help them get their benefits upon release so that we can help them with the tools that they need to succeed. You know, re-entering into society after being incarcerated it's very difficult. Again, I have that felony convictions. I've also have different diagnoses, PTSD, anxiety. However, today I choose not to let any of those labels identify who I am as an individual. Through this process of reentry and change, I have learned how to advocate for myself and the veterans that I help as well. You know, about 5 years ago, I also launched a nonprofit organization, Operation Restoring Veteran Hope, where the backbone of what we do is healing retreats to help our veterans that are coming out of prison and off the streets with recreational therapy through leisure activities. We go kayaking, off-roading, horseback riding, and my team helps share their life stories and we bond and heal together. That's what it's all about. And if there's anybody out there that's struggling right now that may need words of encouragement, please know that change is possible. It's not easy, but it's possible. And lastly, once you choose hope, anything is possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ray, for sharing your story and for the good work you're doing to help other veterans who are reentering. I'd now like to turn it over to Kemba Smith-Pradilla, and would love to hear from you, Kemba. I think you need to turn your mic on, if you would, please. Thanks.
Yes. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for hosting us. I'm humbled and honored to be able to share with you today. In December 2000, President Clinton changed my life forever with one stroke of a pen. I know all too well the power of second chances through clemency. In the 90s, I was a college student and girlfriend of a drug dealer. In this 3.5 year relationship, I was physically abused and traumatized. And at 23, I made the decision to turn myself into federal court in the Eastern District of Virginia, 7 months pregnant with my first child. The prosecutor promised my attorney that if I turned myself in and pled guilty, that I would be granted a bond and I would only receive a 24-month sentence. He reneged. Even though the prosecutor stated that I didn't use, handle, or sell the drugs that were involved in the conspiracy, he still chose to charge and hold me accountable for 255 keys of crack cocaine. While I was in custody, my boyfriend was murdered, and I ended up giving birth to my son. 5 minutes after giving birth, the U.S. Marshals told the prison guards that my leg had to be handcuffed and shackled to the bed at all times. Back in the 90s, there was no room to see me as a human being. I was seen as a statistic, another single young Black mother who was involved with drugs. I was seen as a disposable, like my life had no value. In April of 1994, the judge sentenced me to 24.5 years in prison. Fortunately, after my case became publicized, Elaine Jones, director of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, decided that she would take on my case pro bono. And it was bigger than just me. They had hoped that my case would set a precedent for other first time nonviolent drug offenders. After exhausting every court remedy, my only hope for freedom was through executive clemency. There was a grassroots campaign launched with several organizations, prominent individuals, congressional members, and the media. After serving 6.5 years of my sentence, I was granted immediate release from federal prison in December 2000. I wasn't supposed to be released from prison until 2016. Walking out of those prison doors was a modern day miracle. My priority once home was making sure I reported to my probation officer, reuniting with my family, and learning how to be a mother. I was grateful for my second chance, but I had survivor's guilt. I knew that there were others who deserved their freedom too. That heartache and survivor's guilt is what motivated me to become an author, advocate, and public speaker. My lived experience has led my role as a national advocate and consultant in the criminal justice arena for over 20 years, working with women and youth, national organizations, universities, corporations, and the media. I've worked with senior officials at the White House, the United Nations in Geneva, Switzerland, members of Congress, and I've led trainings for federal and state probation organizations across the country. In 2019, I was appointed as a member of the Virginia Parole Board by Governor Ralph Northam. Not only was I a member responsible for voting on whether someone was no longer a threat to public safety and a good candidate for parole, but we also reviewed absolute, conditional, and simple pardon petitions and made recommendations to the governor. In this position, I saw firsthand problems within the system from a different perspective. Second Chances for me has been focused on changing lives, impacting policy, and service. It has been about humanizing who's incarcerated in our great nation. There are many other incarcerated and formerly incarcerated men and women who are deserving of clemency and having a second chance too. Truth be told, many incarcerated individuals were never given a first chance in life, and many of them don't have the resources available to launch a campaign for freedom. I am hopeful that this administration will continue to make history like you have done today, and we pray that you receive bipartisan support in your efforts. You have shown us that you have been listening, and we are grateful that you are valuing our voices and making sure we have a seat at the table. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kemba. What a powerful story. I'd now like to turn to Jeffrey McReynolds to share your experience, Jeffrey.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me. Thanks to the panel. My name is Jeffrey McReynolds. I'm from Inglewood, the south side of Chicago. I was 27 when I was sentenced to 235 months, which is 19 years, 7 months in federal prison for conspiracy to distribute 50 grams to 1.5 kilograms of cocaine. After sentencing, my mind was made up. I focused on 2 days, the day I was going in and the day I walked out. I earned my GED while I was incarcerated, and I also earned my business degree from Ashworth College while incarcerated. I met a gentleman named Reuben Richardson in FCI Greenville. He taught me about the logistics world while we was incarcerated. I married my childhood sweetheart, my best friend, Shanita McReynolds, in July 31st of 2014 while I was incarcerated. My second chance came in December of 2014. My sentence was reduced to 120 months. I should have been released the day of the ruling, but I still was held an additional 6 months away from my family. Upon my release, the USPO denied me the right to go home to my family in Alabama. She said that she didn't believe our marriage was real. So I was sent back to the halfway house in Chicago. Now my wife had to take on a $90,000 line of credit on our home. Now, excuse me. Now we had to uproot our children and move them to Chicago, change their schools, and this went on for 11 months. And we maintained both homes. Financially, that was hard on both of us. The halfway house was hard on me as well. no passes for church, school, work, or recreational reasons until I can give them a resume. I just had served over a decade in prison. What type of job history can I put on a resume? Then being placed on home confinement after the halfway house, but I couldn't go home. The home my wife maintained in Chicago until I had a landline installed. So the halfway house could call every day to make sure I was home all hours of the day or the night. The money that I saved while in prison, I was able to pay for trucking school. The halfway house office would show up at my school and later my job. It's hard enough trying to adjust to reentry, but when they're showing up everywhere, it's stressful and embarrassing. Getting jobs is usually hard in the beginning, checking the box saying I've been convicted of a felony. Getting hired, going through training and orientations, then background checks reveals my criminal history. So I was terminated same day of employment. Going through this a few times, my wife and I sacrificed to get our own logistics company started in 2016. My wife pulled 100,000 from her 401k to buy our first truck, and that's when we founded JSM Logistics. My vision for JSM Logistics is to provide for my family and also provide those same opportunities for individuals re-entering society after incarceration. My goal is to start a trucking school, but with the criminal history, second chances aren't given. I'm denied grants to help me establish funding for transitioning my vision to the next level because of my criminal history. I paid my debt, but it still feels like I'm being punished. I love to see this change, help me and others like myself move forward with their lives. One thing FAM has always educated people on is that people age out of crime. I'm not the person I was 20 years ago. My life today validated that. When I was released in 2015, I left 44 people behind. 40 of those people are now released, being productive in society. Second chances and lowering recidivism was the real goal for the Bureau of Prisons. Then the remaining four men, Eddie Cozy, Dion Gant, Regilio Perez, and Roy Glover, will also be afforded a second chance to go home to their families after serving unjust lengthy sentences. The immediate impact where the government and agencies can help would be in programs, funding, and oversight reentry. People need help establishing careers and more jobs. Prison needs to be more for move from warehousing to more rehabilitation. I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. And your story of finding your way as an entrepreneur is extremely inspiring. I'd like to turn it now to David Lynch. David, we'd love to hear from you.
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me on today. I appreciate the opportunity to speak and share a little bit about my background and story. My name is David Lynch. I'm from Hagerstown, Maryland. It's about an hour and 20 minutes outside of Washington, D.C. I'm 36 years old, and I was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison as a first-time nonviolent drug offender back in 2012. I ended up serving 7 years and 4 months of that sentence, all at FCI Cumberland in Maryland. And without the support of my family, it would have been a very difficult time for me. But due to having strong family support, I was able to make it through that 7 years. I was given a year off for completing the residential drug abuse program, or RDAP, which was very beneficial to me. Um, the timing of it was slightly off. I wish it could have been a little closer to my release. Uh, I was able to earn an associate's degree as well while I was incarcerated, that I did through correspondence course through Thomas Edison University out of New Jersey. They're probably one of the last universities in the country that does old-fashioned pen and paper, which was all that we had available to us at the time. You had to do your assignments by hand and mail them in, and they would grade them and mail them back that way. There was no kind of online internet access or anything like that. Uh, and so after that, I went to the halfway house at Hope Village in Washington, D.C., which was probably the worst part of the entire experience for me over the whole almost decade experience, just because of the lack of empathy, I want to say, from the staff and just the complete seemingly unnecessariness of the whole thing. I could have just transitioned. I had everything lined up. I had a job that they wouldn't allow me to go to because it was too far away from the halfway house. It was far from my home in Hagerstown, and it was just a difficult experience transitioning. And it was unnecessary because I had a job, I had a college degree, I had my resume, I had somewhere to live. I didn't need to go there, to go to inner city, southeast DC, whatever, and be in that environment, coming from my background, it was really a negative environment for me. And if I wasn't as strong-willed and didn't have that family support, it could have been a detrimental situation where I was easily tempted and influenced to return to that previous criminal life. But I will say I'm really excited about what you guys have announced today. The partnership with the Department of Justice and the Department of Labor is something that's going to be huge, I think, um, in providing the necessary job skills that returning inmates need. Ended up getting my commercial driver's license and going to trucking school as well as Mr. McReynolds when I got out, and I was assisted through that through an organization called the Western Maryland Consortium, which is a regional workforce development agency. They have several offices in Western Maryland, and they are actually funded by the Department of Labor. And so through them, they paid for my entire trucking school, and I was able to start off in a career in the logistics industry as well. And I've continued that career now, and I just want to try to advocate for other guys that are coming home and to let them know that there is another way to do things. You don't have to, be out there hustling in the streets and all that kind of stuff. There are legitimate ways and you can make good money, but you just have to be patient and you have to, look for these resources, or at least you did when I was coming home. And now with this, huge announcement today of all these labor initiatives and workforce stuff, it should be easier for people to try to develop these skills and, come home with the set of tools that they need to be successful. So I just want to say I appreciate that. It was a little too late for me to be a beneficiary of it. Some things and what I'm reading and the fact statement, there may be some things that I made and other individuals that have already been home may still be able to take advantage of in there. So that's something for everyone to stay tuned for, I believe. So thank you again for having me, and I appreciate everything you guys are doing.
Thank you very much, David. Really appreciate it. And I'd like to turn it now over to James Morgan Jr. Tell us your story, James, please. Thank you.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I want to say thank you all so much for allowing me to participate. It's a real honor to be here. My name is James Kelly Morgan Jr. In 1970, I was born to Marie and James Morgan in Cleveland, Ohio. The effect of serving in Vietnam led to a broken home. My dad became very violent. So my mom grabbed all three of her children and we fled to Los Angeles, California. So growing up without a dad and not understanding, I felt rejection and developed an unhealthy need for acceptance and belonging. Throughout my school years, I had no problem getting good grades. However, I did gravitate towards the wrong crowds. And if not for my strong mother and her tough love, I don't think I would have even finished high school. It was her who eventually marched me down to the Army enlistment office. And I did serve in the U.S. Army. Unfortunately, my time in service was cut short, but during the time I did have the honor of serving as a combat engineer in Operation Desert Storm. Unfortunately, my choices and actions before I joined the military caused my time as a soldier to end early. So a few months after returning from Kuwait, I was given an honorable discharge and I was sent home. Being separated from the Army at 21 was traumatic for me. It added to the unresolved issues that I mentioned earlier. I began to struggle with a belief that I was a failure. I returned to Southern California and old associates where I spent the next few years in and out of jails and prisons. I was angry and ashamed and wondering why my life had taken such an ugly turn. Regretfully, a gun, a gang, and a drug charge later, I was facing a life sentence. This time the charge was attempted murder. It was only the grace of God that protected the man I had harmed from bodily injury. I imagined that I would go through all sorts of things as a lifer in a California prison for the 22 years, 8 months that I served. And I did. But never did I think that during this time inside that I'd learn to break free of my hurts, hangups, and habits. That in prison, I learned to identify, talk about, and work towards resolution of the personal issues that drove and influenced my thoughts, urges, feelings, and actions for far too long. Of course, this process of change was nowhere near overnight. It was more like a decade or so. Participation in self-help groups in prison taught me how to honestly see myself, take inventory, and then take responsibility for my actions. Groups like denial management and anger management, alternative to violence, gang affiliates transitioning to excellence, or the GATE, NA and AA, and countless others were especially helpful for me. And not to discount several faith-based step groups and Bible study courses as well. My incarceration was not just me paying for my crimes that I committed. It was also a journey of self-awareness, which thankfully did not end upon release. You see, I was mandated to serve a year at a transitional house in San Francisco, due in part to being released early. I had earned suitability at my parole hearing. AB 1308 and those champions who believe that adolescents in their mid-20s also deserve a juvenile hearing. They helped me to get there. My year in this transitional house was special because it was my final test and a victory lap as well. I was given bits of freedom and lots of opportunities to become responsible. The program and staff there were tough but fair. They seemed to know and speak to my specific needs. I am still amazed that they were able to assist me without enabling me, to limit me without making me feel punished. Upon my departure, I was fully confident. I had also obtained my first driver's license, my first savings account, along with my first and last month's rent for my next residence. Before learning about and joining the Anti-Recidivism Coalition, also known as ARC, I was working 18 months as a monitoring technician in a refinery. ARC is a group that works to empower formerly and currently incarcerated people to succeed by providing a support network, reentry services, and opportunities to speak and advocate on policy change. I now work 40 hours a week for PCL. I am a local 300 union member. I'm a laborer's apprentice in the construction trade. Because I completed ARC's 11-week pre-apprenticeship program and also attended a once weekly group at Second Call, which is another support network that's in the business of saving lives, my construction career is now headed into month number 9. I owe real debt of gratitude to society and everyone hearing this. I also would like to thank all you people here and the LA and Orange County Building Trades Council, the Los Angeles Apprenticeship Fund, the U.S. Department of Labor, the Laborers Local 300 Union, the Laborers Training School in Azusa, ARC, and Second Call. And I also must thank my friends and family who stood by me during these times and helped me to succeed. And also I want to thank my creator. Thank you.
Thank you so much, James. It's a really compelling story. Thank you. And I'd now like, last but not least, turn it over to Jessica Henry. Jessica, tell us your story, please.
Thank you, Ambassador Rice, and thank you to everyone on the panel for sharing your stories. They're very impactful. My name is Jessica, of course. I'd like to start by sharing some of my juvenile history. I was in juvenile detention centers, youth facilities, which led into foster care, which led into me becoming a teen mother at 15, and that led into me living an unhealthy lifestyle, drug addiction, 5 outpatient rehabs, 3 inpatient rehabs, 8 jail stays, 2 prison bits. My first prison bit, I was able to obtain my GED after an 8th grade education. And my second prison bit, I was able to obtain 3 associate's degrees with the Second Chance Pell Grant. And I do believe the Second Chance Pell Grant is what saved my life. After being on the streets and drug addiction and those unhealthy lifestyles and the behaviors that I had, and I wasn't able to maintain a healthy lifestyle after repeat offenses back and forth in and out of jail. There was nothing that was changing my behaviors or my mindset until I was able to obtain a real education. And that education is what gave me value and dignity and respect for myself. The Second Chance Pell Grant saved my life due to the fact that the college education and the classes and the value of the other incarcerated individuals in my classroom, the way that we learned not only through the curriculum, but through the sufferings and the unspoken pain that we use as a communication tool together in the intimate classroom settings. The professors that came in and treated us with humanity and dignity and worth, the advisor that came in and stuck through us from the beginning to the end and just gave us the sense of accomplishment and the feeling that we had a future. I found transformation in my identity through education. I found that I had skills my whole life, and I was able to take those skills and use them for good instead of the unhealthy behaviors I was having before. I was able to change my mindset and my behaviors through education. I was able to obtain sobriety and keep my sobriety. And the void that was left, I filled it with education. I filled it with learning, and that is my passion. And upon my release, I left Detroit because I had to change all the people, places, and things, which was a huge factor of me continuing those unhealthy behaviors. And I came to Jackson, Michigan, and I am now in a program called SOAR. It's a 2-year transitional place for women to heal and recover. And it's the best thing that's happened to me next to my education. I now attend Spring Arbor University, where I'm working on my social work major with a double minor in psychology and business. And my focus is corrections counseling. I do plan on obtaining my master's degree after my bachelor's, and it's almost finals week, so things are kind of hectic. I also am a proud grandmother to my 18-month-old granddaughter, Journey, and I reconnected with all of my family. Me and my daughter have the strongest bond, and my brothers and sisters and my mother, without them and their acceptance and their support, it would have been a rocky journey. So support and acceptance is huge on anybody's path, on reclaiming their dignity and worth in any path that they're going through. And I also work with a few organizations. I work with this organization called My Place. It's for aged out foster care females, and I mentor them. I work with another organization called STEP, Success to Every Parolee, where I work one-on-one with returning citizens to obtain the milestones of reclaiming their dignity. Also Nation Outside, which is a voice and advocate for the formerly incarcerated. And speaking towards change, I am definitely an advocate for more and equal education opportunities in all facilities, higher education and valuable life skills that could be taught to those who need them. I believe that when we begin with education as a model for change, we can lower the recidivism rates and create safer communities and reunite families while bringing back economic stability. And the changes that were spoken about earlier today, it really got to my heart, and I'm proud to be part of this. And thank you for letting me speak at this forum today. I feel honored by this opportunity. I appreciate everybody, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jessica. That's it's an extraordinary story, in particular about the role of education and how it was transformative for you. We'd like to now open it up to a conversation. My colleagues and I have a number of questions we'd like to ask, but I'd also like to encourage you all to feel free to talk to each other and ask each other questions or comment on what you've heard from one another. So do feel free to jump in if you like, but I'll start with Dana.
Thank you all. Kemba, Thank you all. Your stories are incredibly inspiring. Kemba, I'm going to start with a question for you. While the grant of clemency, the commutation of your sentence, was obviously critical to your path from there was, I have to imagine, neither easy and certainly not inevitable. So my question for you is what message or advice you would give to the 75 recipients of commutations today? And I think you're still on mute.
We've been doing this for how long? My advice would be to make sure you have, if possible, a good support system where you can talk about some of your fears, some of your shame. I think one of the things that people don't understand that even after you served your time in prison, your debts to society, you still carry this weight of shame and embarrassment. And so I strongly encourage that there be a support system. And even with me, and I know Jessica spoke about healing, and I'm glad that you're able to be in that healing space, but it's really important for formerly incarcerated people to come out. I know you need you need housing, you need a job, but also make sure you take the time out for healing. So therapy has been a part of my lifestyle ever since my release from prison and even still today. But also to make sure you check in. I'm assuming the majority of people that have had their sentence commuted are having to report to a probation officer. And I know with my experience, I had a very aggressive probation officer that did all kinds of things that I'm not going to go through here. But I believe that times have changed some, and that probation authorities across the country are leaning more towards evidence-based practices, and that it's really important for you to develop a relationship with your probation officer, because they're supposed to be there as a source of for references, for resources in the community. And so build that relationship, but just don't lose hope, and take it a day at a time and try to stay focused. But I really emphasize the fact of healing and letting go of those negative emotions so that you can move on with your life and soar.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it to Cedric.
Again, thank you all. And this question's for Jeffrey. And part of why we're here today is make sure that when you're released, is to make sure that this is not a self-fulfilling prophecy, that we give you every opportunity, every tool, the support you need to be successful and to succeed. So I guess my question for you, considering that you started your own business and you are thriving, what would be your advice for the people that are coming home today in terms of either starting a business or owning a business or just getting off on that right foot?
Well, I would say, to answer your question, is to invest in themselves and in education, because a person coming home from prison, they have a mindset to be straightforward with you. And when they do that, they're focused on that goal, achieve that goal, because knowing that they won't fail themselves. They let plenty of people down in the past, but now going forward, there's like, I can't. It's like an audible, say for instance, you audible out of a play because you know it's not going to work, but you can see when it's happening before you go into that drastic state, and you can repair it before it's damaged. for them to go forward and coming home, I want to say is just always believe in yourself. Don't never give up. You know, you're gonna fall. Take it as a L, as a lesson, not a loss. You just gotta always look forward. You're gonna bump into things. You know, we started off rocky. You know, it's not gonna be a smooth road. You just gotta go forward. Continue to just strive to do best and focus on others. You know, whatever you learn, you can share the information. Just not to be held to yourself. You have to share all the information. That's where your success going to come in at. You just got to stay focused. Stay focused. You know, we can party and stuff later, but make sure you stay focused first and get the job done.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I didn't say anything. Go ahead.
I thought someone was chiming in. Well, thank you, Jeffrey. I guess I want to ask Ray a question. And Ray, part of the announcement today was that the VA was developing a partnership with the Bureau of Prisons and Department of Health and Human Services to automate information which will help expedite the restoration of benefits, but additionally shift the burden to the agencies instead of placing it on the veteran after release. How do you think this will empower the work that you do and the veterans that you serve?
This is a huge move on behalf of the VBA. You know, unfortunately, we're limited as to the services that we can provide while incarcerated, and being able to provide this assistance with the restoration of restoration of benefits, VA benefits. It's going to be a huge tool for these individuals to utilize, knowing that their benefits will be reinstated upon release. You know, that's a huge step. You know, unfortunately, a lot of our veterans that release from prison, they do release homeless, and you know, having to build your life from the ground up is very difficult. So reinstating the service-connected compensation and things like that is a huge benefit to these veterans, and I look forward to it.
Well, thank you for participating, and of course, we know that our boss would want to thank all veterans for their service. So thank you for your service, and thank you for inspiring others to do what you're doing. And remarkable story, especially so fitting for Second Chance Month. With that, I'll turn it back over to Ambassador Rice.
Thank you, Cedric. My question is for James. James, you were a valedictorian of your pre-apprenticeship class, and now you're a new union apprentice on your way to becoming a journeyman. I actually met last week with the head of the building trades union talking about this very thing, their pre-apprenticeship programs and the work that they're doing, particularly in California, with those who are formerly incarcerated. So I'd love to hear how this experience has worked for you, why you find the work that you're doing now so rewarding, and how this can be a pathway for others.
Yes, yes, the program was awesome. Mr. Ben Garcia and all the other people that helped him and assisted him, they just treated us with respect and understanding from what we've been through. And the things that they gave me during these classes, during these hours and weeks that we've spent together, was just they instilled in us a discipline, like Mr. Jeff was saying, a belief in ourselves, education, paying attention, you know what I mean? Paying attention and putting the games behind us while we're focusing on the task at hand was some of the things that they instilled in us. And they taught us basic use of tools, knowledge of the union, history of things like that. And it was just having an opportunity to have this second chance is what really stuck with me as something that was special, because it was hard. Had I not known someone in the refinery, I wouldn't have had that job. I was turned down repeatedly on other jobs. So having a program straight from prison that was there for us like that, it just really meant a lot. And they had that safety net there for us and the support structure that were able to push us to the right places. They had the right connections, which we didn't. And I just see it as a real blessing. And it was I just paid attention. I just paid attention and was present in the moment, and something that I hadn't did in the past. I was just being there, being present, and that helped me to succeed.
I'll pass on your story to Sean McGarvey next time I get a chance to see him.
Thank you.
Dana?
Jessica, my question is for you. My question is for you, Jessica. You shared that receiving your education through Second Chance Pell saved your life, and based on your 3.96 GPA, I can tell you love learning just as I do. What does your education mean to you?
My education is everything. Jackson College is still supporting me, even though I'm not incarcerated anymore. I just feel valued. I feel worthy. I feel I should have been taking my education seriously my entire life, and I could have taken different avenues. Just to have my education while I was incarcerated gave me new hope. It gave me an actual purpose for my life that I thought was going nowhere. And just to have somebody look at me in a different light when I thought that my life was so low, and to actually have a meaning to something that I thought was no value to me anymore. And I just rise to the occasion and made myself just worthy enough to be human again. And everybody who supported me within that situation, within the classrooms, the professors who came in, and it took them literally hours to get in with our books. They had to go through the shakedowns. They had to go through everything it takes to get in the doors of the facility to come to class every day. And they did that for us to give us our educations. And that wasn't lost on me. And for us to learn together through our untold experiences. And like David was saying earlier, through his college, we didn't have technology. We did everything with pen and paper. I got 81 credits through Jackson College with pen and paper. And that meant so much to me to know that I was capable, and to be capable of what I achieved with my classmates. The entire graduating class, 17 women, we all graduated with high honors. When we walked across that stage to get our degree, and I even shook the warden's hand, and he shook my hand with respect, and I just felt, it's indescribable. It just made me feel, here, we were here. We were equal. We were both human in that moment. And to have that, there's no words for that. How can I tell you a feeling that has no words? And for me to be released, I want it. When you want something, you want it within the depths of your soul, and you're moved to make life happen. And to give that value to every single incarcerated individual, they are worthy. They are worthy of education. They are worthy of the skills that they know that they have inside them. They just need somebody to make them feel worthy. They need somebody to make them feel valued and appreciated, and just show them that they are worth it. We're all equal. We're all humankind. It's just, that's my education. That's what education means to me. Thank you.
And your words are such a testament to Second Chance Month. That is the essence of why we are all here today. David, I'm going to turn to you. Despite not having job training or robust reentry preparation, you still found success. You spoke a little bit about the help of your family. Can you talk more about what drove you towards success in your path?
Sure. Basically, like what alluding to what Jessica was just speaking on, and it's just about having that deep desire within yourself to want something different and better as an individual, and to have the support of your family, which for me was my mother, father, brothers, grandmother. I'm very fortunate, and they all just wanted to see me be the best version of myself. So that was huge for me as far as my self confidence goes. But I think even more importantly, for even people that don't have that, is the fact that we want to try to shed this stigma of we're felons when we're coming home. And if this administration is leading the way and, telling getting the business leaders and the people that make decisions at corporations and the people that do the hiring can be convinced that we're good workers too. And these are some of the best working people that you're ever going to meet. And that's where can outwork 99% of the people that I've come across since I've come home. And I never wanted to work more than I ever did when I very first came home. And so for a lot of people, hitting the ground and you're putting applications in and you're eager, and that felony is the only thing keeping you from getting a job or being successful, that's a hard pill to swallow. And if you don't have people in your corner that are like, no, keep going, like, you put 10 applications in, but the 11th one, you're going to get the job, just keep trying, you know, without that, it becomes tough. But once these employers are able to hear these stories and see us as individuals, like, hey, all these people here talking are advocates, they're starting nonprofits, they're starting logistics companies, like, and these are the people that the rest of society has kind of written off, like, and looks down upon. Well, no, it's only because you haven't met us as individuals and haven't heard our individual stories. But we are just as capable, and a lot of times even more capable, because we've been set in time out for those years or decades or whatever, and we've had all the time in the world to work on ourselves and figure out who we are and what we really want out of life. Whereas the majority of people never really get that opportunity. You go to college as a normal, what's the American dream? Go to college, get a good career, get a house, get a family, but you never really find time to actually find yourself and what you want in life. But prison, in a positive light, allowed a lot of us to do that, break free from these addictions and substance issues, to really see, okay, hey, I love education, or I love helping other people, and all I need is a chance. All I need is that employer to say, yeah, here's an entry level position, or that apprenticeship, or that uh, journeyman school, or whatever the case is, for them to say, we're going to give you a shot. And then the ball's in our court. If we fumble, that's on us. But we have all the desire in the world to do it. We should at least have that chance, and that's what the second chance is all about. Just actually getting the second chance. So I appreciate what you guys have done, and thank you for letting us all speak today.
Thank you. Susan, back to you.
Thanks. I think I'd like to open it up so that everybody is on screen together, and I'd love to invite any of you who wants to say anything in response to what you've heard from the other panelists to jump in. Every single one of you has an extraordinary, inspiring story, and you each have, put light on a very important aspect of the reentry challenge and opportunity. So I could ask questions, we could ask questions all day, but I'd love to give you guys an opportunity to say whatever you want to say or ask what you want to ask of one another or of us.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to piggyback on what David just spoke about and to the people that sentences were commuted today. Hopefully, when I was being supervised, there was a restriction where you couldn't communicate or, talk to anybody who was formerly incarcerated. And it wasn't until after I was off of probation and years later, when there's been such a movement to bring us together, where I was in a safe space with other formerly incarcerated people and really amazed at the kind of work that we are doing across the country. And so there's an organization called Just Leadership USA. If any of those people were commuted, want to go click on the leaders tab, you will meet and see leaders from across the country that are leading forth really good work and initiatives. So, I hope that there's opportunities for these people that were released to be able to connect with other formerly incarcerated people who are, positively doing the things that we're supposed to be doing so that we can encourage them, because that wasn't provided for me when I was released.
Kimber, it may be a question for everybody, but it's part of what you said, part of what Jessica said, Jeff said, and David in terms of the support network, and it was a lot family. And I would assume that a lot of it was positive peer support also. People who have been where you've been, who are encouraging you that you can do it also. How important is that? But is there a way that we can facilitate and promote that peer support for others that will be returning home soon and for those who have been recently released?
With President Obama's administration, he actually had formerly incarcerated people come to the White House, and I would just, say within certain agencies, maybe you can host a convening for them where, you could have, selected speakers to come share and open up the floor for dialogue so that you can have transparency with everyone's experience and what they're dealing with. And oftentimes, agencies are able to learn and see where some of the mishaps, loopholes, by listening to some of our experiences and stories, and see that, we can help be a part of the solutions and making this a better process.
Sorry, if I could just say real fast, the simplest way in my mind that the administration would be able to help facilitate peer support is just by coming out and coming with maybe a statement from the Bureau of Prisons that says, hey, you guys as ex-felons are allowed to communicate if it's in a positive manner. We are told, but when we're getting ready to leave and come home, that we are not allowed to have any contact with anybody that's on probation or an ex-felon or regardless if they're a family member or anything like that. And it doesn't take into any kind of consideration if it's a positive interaction or a negative one. And so somebody could say, hey, let's go study for the trucking school exam, or let's go, put our resumes together. But I'm not allowed to interact with that person because of what? And there's no real explanation to why. And I think it's just the same kind of old stigma that two ex-felons together, that's bad news because they might end up doing something that they shouldn't do. And so if that can somehow be removed and say, hey, all right, look, it's on you. If you go and break the law, it's on you. I can break the law by myself or I could do it with somebody. But sometimes I might need help to go put a resume in. I might be nervous, or this guy might already have a job. He could say, hey, come, let me introduce you to the manager or whatever. But just maybe putting it so where we don't feel like we're doing something wrong by talking to somebody else that has also previously been incarcerated would be a good start.
And if I could add to that also, I work with a program called STEP. It stands for Success to Every Parolee. And I am cleared by the MDOC as a felon to work with returning citizens to help them complete the milestones, like obtaining resources like Medicaid, food stamps, making it to their parole office visits, making it to healthcare appointments, getting employment, the things that I have achieved that they need help with. Because when you get out, you have big plans like, I'm going to make these things happen, but as soon as you breathe that air, it's overwhelming. And those big plans get shot down because this is a big world out here and they need help. Who better to help them than somebody who has already achieved it, who has already got out, been overwhelmed, and made it through and achieved those milestones. somebody who knows what it's like and has done it firsthand, who has succeeded, failed. All those failures, like Jeffrey was saying earlier, all those failures are stepping stones to success. And as a felon who has been there, done that, who better to help another returning citizen than somebody who has been there? And I'm not out for anything malicious, but the stigma says two felons together is trouble. But, and also Nation Outside is a group of felons. Nation Outside is formerly incarcerated individuals getting together to use their voice to advocate for those who don't have a voice, the formerly incarcerated. But it's a bunch of felons getting together saying, hey, this is what we need. We need housing. We need anything that we need so we can support ourselves to break the stigma, because the stigma is something that is stuck within us as a society, saying felons are bad, good, and we classify things because we're stuck on organization in our brains as humans. It's like that, and it's something that needs to be broken.
Ray,
but felon to felon contact isn't bad. I apologize.
No, thank you. Ray, I know you were trying to get in.
Yes, just to add to the peer support role, I'm a huge advocate for peer support, and I'm proud to share that here in the state of Arizona, in the prison system, particularly in the veterans pods, we do have veterans that are getting peer support trained and certified. So those that have been in prison for quite a while are peer mentoring those that are just coming into the system that have a little bit of time on their hands. And it's great to help out with these jobs when they get released from prison. What else than to ask for a peer support specialist to help those that are reentering into society. Our title isn't a PhD or an MSW. Our initials are ITE, which stands for I'm the Evidence. And that VA, they help provide the peer support training for us. And in my personal opinion, in my own experiences as a peer support specialist, it has helped to keep me grounded. I am in recovery. I am proud to share that I've been clean, sober, and tobacco free for 9 years. And in my role as a peer support specialist, it keeps me grounded and leading the way, just as a young infantryman I once was, leading by example and helping my brothers and sisters to find their way back home.
That's great. Let me just ask one thing to wrap us up and close us out. We sit here and we try to figure out, what are the policy levers we can pull that would be helpful on this challenge and many others. And today we rolled out these 20 actions from a dozen agencies, but that doesn't mean we're done. And undoubtedly, we have not thought of aspects of this problem that if we could, make another policy shift would be beneficial to other returning citizens. So I'd be really interested to know if there are things we haven't done that we should do that you think we could consider.
I think adding more trade programs to prisons will help because it's very few and only a certain amount can actually enroll in them at certain times. But prisons sometimes they don't release every day, so it's just trying to find out getting more opportunities for individuals and give them something to do and prepare them for release. Like I tell guys all the time, always have a plan. So when you walk out that door, you just start running on that plan. And for them to have more opportunities while in prison, it'll be great. So therefore, their time is not being idle, not having to think about the things that doesn't really appeal to them while in prison. Something that gets them prepared to take care of their families and provide for their grandchildren and children, and so they can build generational wealth for their families to come. Um, it can be done. We just have to find the means to get it done.
And I would just echo in and when you talk about this peer support, one of the things that I've done has been very transparent about the choices that I made. And I know in my instance, I have been able to go in schools, but I have heard other people tell stories about how they're not able to even go speak in the schools because of their criminal record, or much less, let's forget speaking in the schools. They can't participate in PTA because of their record in going into the school to do activities. And then also, if there's a way to just how you connected with the Department of Labor, I do believe that there should be a partnership with the Department of Social Services. And like I was saying, in making sure also too that there is a way for counseling. One of the, issues with our criminal justice system is mental health. And, there are people, and maybe some people that you all commuted today that have spent, like was said, decades in prison, and a probation officer can't expect them to come out and get it all right. And so we need to make sure we don't have a gung ho, supervision system, and make sure that there's a social service agency that can be there to be supportive, because I'm sure probation officers' caseloads are heavy. They can't fulfill every hat there is for a formerly incarcerated person coming out. So I would like to see something like that if possible.
I would just say that one thing that would be super beneficial in my mind is to have a more tailored reentry plan for the individual. I was sent to a halfway house where I was put with inmates from all different security classifications, while I spent the duration of my sentence in minimum security. And I was then, in an environment with men from that had been in low security, medium to maximum, and had done decades in prison. And some of those guys, they needed a class just to learn how to use a smartphone, just to learn how to use the tools that are available to them on the internet. And whereas I had everything lined up that I needed, because was a little more in touch with the times, because I hadn't spent quite as long, and also because of the huge family support. But I think just a more tailored, individualized reentry plan, a mental health assessment, like Kemba said, and to really just find out what each person needs, not just saying, hey, all you guys need the same thing, because that's not the case. We all need a little something different coming out. And just that would be a huge help, whether it's, you know, a new position at each prison to facilitate that, or whatever it is, more funding. I don't know what the actual end solution would be, but just to have that individualized reentry plan would be huge.
And just, I promise I'm going to be quiet, but with with my incarceration during that time, the fastest growing population within prison were Black women. And so oftentimes when I see commutation lists, I'm always looking not as far as race, but to see, how many women are listed on there. And I think oftentimes some of the women and the trauma that we've gone through prior to our incarceration, and then also, again, this goes back to the social services, because, being separated from your child, and, I was grateful. My parents are my heroes. They raised my son, but there are challenges that families have to deal with regard to family reunification. But I hope that this administration will also take a look at women and incarceration, and finding opportunities for freedom, and looking at the trauma and mitigating the circumstances that lead us down this path.
Uh, Let me just, again, thank you all for participating. And I hope that the people who get a chance to watch this, both those who are formerly incarcerated and those uh, who have not been, really take this as a opportunity to learn. And those that are formerly incarcerated, that have recently gone home, I hope that they see you as people who have walked in the same shoes that they're in, see your success and your determination, and mirror that in terms of not just your personal success, but the fact that you are reaching back to help others, and the fact that it's not necessarily just about you. It's about making the whole community better. And so I am a firm believer in second chances. This administration is a firm believer in breaking down those barriers to success when people come home, and we will continue to approach this with common sense, and that's what these conversations do. They give people like us a chance to hear from you on real examples of what could make the process better. And let me just commend you for what you are doing and encourage you to keep doing it. So thank you.
I'm so grateful to all of you for sharing your inspiring stories with us. You all are powerful examples of the impact of a second chance. Many of you have noted the stigma or shame that comes with being formerly incarcerated. And I just want to say on behalf of all of us and the administration that there is no stigma or shame in needing a second chance. And that there is great strength and power and inspiration in taking advantage of a second chance. And indeed, the president's first wave of clemency grants reflects his deep commitment to rewarding individuals who are working to rehabilitate themselves and to contribute to their communities. And it's just the beginning. The president will continue to review clemency petitions over the coming months, and we will continue all of this critically important work in supporting formerly incarcerated persons, in creating second chances, and in ensuring that our criminal justice system is more just and more equal. So thank you all for the inspiration, and I will turn it to Susan to conclude.
Let me just say thanks to each and every one of you, personally, David, Jeff, James, Kemba, Jessica, Ray. You all are incredibly generous to share your stories with us. You have given everybody who's watched this a sense of hope and inspiration, and an understanding of how valuable your contributions are. You all, each of you have given back in ways that are impossible really to measure. But I think arguably the greatest gift you've given to those who are listening today is to understand that we are a nation full of people, 600,000 returning citizens a year, who have the potential to contribute and be as valuable to our society and our families as you all are. You are proving the point that it is our loss not to work to ensure that everybody who leaves and re-enters society has the opportunity to fulfill their potential, has the opportunity to get back on their feet and contribute in the ways that you are. So thank you for underscoring that valuable lesson for everybody watching. I want to thank our viewers who've joined us. And I hope we all go away from this discussion motivated to ensure that for every one of the people on this screen, that there are thousands more that we can touch and help in the same way. Thank you so much.